You're listening to The Parallel Paths, a podcast designed to elevate your mind, body, and spirit so that you can get everything you want out of life. The only question is, are you ready? Welcome back to the Parallel Paths podcast. I'm your co-host, Makita Moore.
I'm your other co-host, Blair McClendon.
And we are back for another special week on the podcast. And we are honored to be joined with this queen from my hometown, right? Naheelah and her husband, Bamidele. And they are coming to us all the way from Tanzania. And how I reconnected, like I said, Sarah and I came from the same, Naheelah, still getting used to it. Naheelah, and we'll talk about this, the change of the name as well. But Naheelah came to us, and her husband comes to us from Tanzania, and she and I connected because we went to elementary, we grew up together, same hometown, which is another interesting thing of kind of like, you know, our mindset and how we were shaped and all this stuff. From the same hometown, but again, as the same with this whole parallel podcast name goes, it seems that we've been on these parallel paths of, you know, really connecting with our spirit, discovering our truth, and that truth has led her and her husband to moving to Tanzania. So they've been on this journey of education, discovery, and now they're sharing the education with other people, and that's what really attracted me to, you know, wanting to dive in, wanting to have you all on the podcast. So I really, really, both of us, Blair and I, both appreciate y'all being here.
Thank you so much for having us. This is an honor.
Yes,
we're so excited.
Honor.
Awesome.
Things. So, I mean, I already mentioned that y'all are in Tanzania. Let's start there. What prompted that move?
You wanna?
Okay, so it was a long journey, and like most, you know, good plans, it kind of unfolds according to your consciousness and not according to what you necessarily put on paper.
Right.
So, you know, we as we, you know, was in America, we was both people who was like deeply invested in learning about the society we live in, and we reached a level eventually that we realized that it would be difficult to raise a family, and specifically our son, in an environment that we felt was hostile, you know, to the growth of healthy families.
Right.
So at that point, we decided, okay, we're going to have to move to Africa because, you know, as you know, Africa is the origin of all Black people in America. And we felt that having that natural environment would awaken, you know, a lot of the things that are kept, you know, under the surface in America. So originally we planned on relocating to the Gambia in West Africa. But lo and behold, COVID came. I think it was the spring of 2020, and we had plans to go. But what would happen every time we would schedule a flight, the last leg of the flight would fall off.
Yeah.
So it started to feel like we wasn't going to get out. But we were so determined. We said, even if we can't make it to the continent, we're going to get off of this landmass of America. So we decided to go to Jamaica.
Yeah.
And that was in June of 2020.
Yeah.
And we stayed in Jamaica for a month. We stayed from like June 17th all the way to July 11th. And I was currently at the time working with the airline, so I could get flights very easily. So, you know, we you know, settled down in Jamaica for a month. And the whole time we was there, we was trying to get flights to Africa,
and it wasn't working.
And then we just decided one day in Jamaica, we said, we're going to do research because obviously the Gambia is closed because they was on curfew. And we discovered Tanzania because of its president, John Pombe Magufuli.
Yeah.
And John Pombe Magufuli is an interesting figure on the world stage because unlike most presidents, he isn't compliant at all to any of the COVID guidelines.
Right.
And when we saw that, we was like, this is the perfect place for us. You know, he is very independent, very nationalist too.
Natural remedies, all of
natural remedies he would advise his population to take. So he was like, this is the place for us. And so we scheduled a flight to go from Jamaica back to the U.S. because there was no direct flights from Jamaica.
We were very upset.
Yeah, we had to go back through. So we took a
we was like, dang it, they trying to get us back.
Right, so we took a flight from Montego Bay, Jamaica, back to Atlanta, and then we took a flight from Atlanta to D.C. Then we took a flight from D.C. to Ethiopia. Then we took a flight from Ethiopia to Tanzania.
Right.
And we landed on my on July 11th, 2020.
Yeah.
That's when we landed in Tanzania. And since we've been here, the community in Tanzania has been so generous and open-hearted. We've learned so much, not only in terms of how to live, but how to relate to one another, because this is a family-centered society. So a lot of the market values that seem to dominate in America aren't as dominant here.
Right.
So we have a lot of peace and balance, we feel, since we moved. So that's just a short story.
Yeah.
But it was a long process. I made it sound simple. It wasn't that simple.
It was very frustrating too.
Yeah.
Trying to get flights and book them, it was just like we were always getting shut down. So we were just really thankful to finally get here. And it's been amazing since we've been here.
Yes.
I just want to salute your determination and the drive and everything that went behind getting over there. It's huge.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
And we felt like we appreciated it more once we got here. Cause I mean, like I try to say, like, the philosophy we should approach in life is you either win or you learn, but you never lose. There's no such loss. So I feel like that struggle in getting here, it was beneficial in the sense that once we touched ground in Tanzania, we could appreciate it more because we understood how much fight went into getting here. So now we're more protective in terms of establishing, our life here that's as we envisioned it to be, and not just, relaxing, but saying, okay, now that we're here, now what are we going to do to build?
Right. And we don't do a lot of the tourist stuff. Like I know a lot of people come here and they just want to hit the ground and look at tourist stuff and go into tourist places, which we did those things, but it was gradual. It was not like we got here and that was the first thing we did. So we were very we really wanted to integrate with the people. Like that's really our biggest thing. Like,
and honoring and respecting and kind of adapting to their pace and styles of living.
We really just students. Like we didn't want to come here teaching the people here anything. Like Africans, we can give them nothing. Like we're at their feet at all times. Like teach us. We have so much to learn from them because the way their mind shape is just completely different from the way ours is in America. And it's very intentional. Like, so for us, we were just like, this is the learning experience. And
so we learn every day. It's like we students of life at this point.
What would you say has been like the most, I don't know if fascinating would be the word, but I guess the most polar opposite thing that you've learned there compared to what we're programmed to like over here in the States?
Ooh.
Well, that's a good question. So
we might have different ones.
So I would say familyhood, and by that I mean in terms of the language. So the main language here is Kiswahili. When we go out every day, every man we encounter, we call him kaka. That's Kiswahili for brother. Every woman we encounter, we call her dada. That's Kiswahili for sister.
And they call us
and they call us the same thing. They call us kaka and dada. So on that basic level, you have this emphasis on we don't have to be biologically related. Because we're both African people, you're my brother. Because we're both African people, you're my sister. Likewise, children have different words of addressing people depending on the age. So if it's a peer, or even adults too. So if I'm addressing another adult who is the same age as me, I'll say mambo. That just means like, hello, what's up? But if I'm addressing an adult who's my elder, I have to say shkamo. And shkamo just means I respect you. And then the elder would respond to you, marahaba. And marahaba means I receive your respect. So, and this is all just ingrained in the culture. In the
language.
It's in the language. It's secondhand. Like you'll never see any child refer to it. Like even because if I go outside our gate and there's some children out front, I'll see the children and I'll say mambo and they'll say shkamo. Basically saying I respect you. They don't have to know me. They just saying because you're older than us, we respect you. And then I'll say marahaba. I receive your respect. So I feel when you have, and I think the language of a people gives you insight into the culture and the psychology of the people. And it structures your thought. So I feel like it would be beneficial if African people worldwide started to uphold that type of relationship in terms of how they speak to one another. Because then when things happen in our communities, we'll be more vigilant about coming to each other's aid, and we don't look at each other as strangers. So I would say that that's really the most, I think, enduring aspect since I've gotten here.
Yeah. And I think that's huge. The family thing for us was very important. I think another thing that we noticed is, because you know this and you hear people say it when you're in the States, but it's kind of hard to think of because you don't see it, is the lack of being the majority, not having to see white people every day. Like not having to even address them or speak to them or code switch or, you know what I mean? Like that's not a thing here because we're just around. We see Africans everywhere. Like, you know, we're everywhere. So I think when you're in societies where, you know, they're everywhere, you know, the billboards, the advertising, the commercials, like even in your own house, you can't get away from them. It's very, it warps your thinking, like, and it makes you kind of centered on them, even though you don't look, even though your culture is different from them. So being here, it kind of like, it was so drastic to just be on the road and just for miles, just see Africans. Like it was just, and going to the store and just seeing them or going out on the street and buying stuff and now having to see them. For me, that was just so important, and it was beautiful because it aligned with what I was learning, because I was learning that Africans are the majority of the world, you know, that they're a global minority. Like I was learning those things, but I wasn't seeing it. It was hard for me to really believe it in a way. So I think that for me was very huge, is to just see the truth in what I was learning.
Right. Perception and reality align themselves. Like I feel like in America, you perceive one thing, but the global reality is different. It's just different, Whereas here, it's like we're the world majority, and you go out and you'll see we're the world majority. You know, so it's refreshing to have that shock of reality. You know?
And I can imagine the benefits that has for your spirit, because even in America, you know, it's considered like the land of the free. And I remember one of your videos you guys talk about, it's just the land of the deceit. It was something that you said about the deception of America. And I can imagine that dissonance between what you believe something to be, and then you're trying to make sense of it by trying to see how it's free, but truly you're living under this oppressed, you know, system. I can just see how that could just bear on our spirit, but we don't realize how much is bearing on our spirit because this is all we know.
Exactly. Yes, I agree. It's very hard to, like you said, just decipher between the two. If you're seeing it every day, you're just going to naturally believe it. And I think too, it's hard because even though we were in America and we would be like, yeah, this place isn't free, it's not free, you still, your mind, your spirit, well, your mind, not your spirit, it doesn't want to believe it's not free because you're living there. You know what I mean? So it's hard you say it and you're studying it and you're learning these things and you can see that it's not free, but internally your mind really wants you to believe that it's not, because if it is not free, now you have to act. Now you have to, you know, so it's just.
The urge to compartmentalize is, I think, very strong, because it's like the more you learn, the more you have to kind of wall off realities, because if you kind of incorporate them into your mind, now you feel like the walls are closing in on you. And that's how it felt for us before we left. You know, because we wanted to get out so bad, and then we knew what the society was at its essence, in its spiritual sense. And it seemed like we couldn't get out. So once we got out, it was like, you know, breathing fresh air after being underwater. You know, so, and I think that's why it's so crucial that we go into an environment that, even if we didn't grow up in the environment, we have to say, is this environment, does it reflect our historical origin? Because I think we have a genetic memory, they say, and in our genetic memory, when you place someone in an environment that's compatible with their genetic memory, then all of their talents, all of their spiritual depth, and everything about them that makes them human starts to manifest in different ways and in powerful ways. You just have a confidence about yourself because you know that who you're being is in line with your natural self.
And it's authentic.
And it's authentic, you know, like authenticity is very important here. Like we often say that one of the things about here that we love is like, you can't really afford to be fake. Like if you try to be fake, reality is just going to catch up to you, and it's going to you're just going to fall behind.
And even the Africans here, like they're not just, they greet you and they smile and stuff, but they're not just overly, you know how like when you'll go into a space, or like, hi, like, you know, like very just animated and dramatic, and it's like, why are you being this nice to me? You don't even know me. Like, what? This is weird. They don't do that here. They're very like,
if they don't like
authentic.
you can tell. If they like you,
you can tell.
Yeah.
They don't know how to do the code switching, and I think that was another thing. I'm like, dang, they don't code switch at all here. Like, they're very like, I'm gonna be the same no matter who I'm in front of. And I think that was something too that I hadn't been used to, because I came from environments where code switching was just normal. Like, if you don't code switch, you ain't getting this job.
Right.
So I think seeing how they're just very content with who they are, and they're not willing to be two different people is crazy. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And I know that's a major shift, because Naima, you and I, we grew up probably the only Black families in our neighborhood, you know, predominantly white high schools, like, and that was just like, we love, like, I've heard you say in your videos, like, we loved white people just because those were our best friends growing up ever since, you know, they had opportunities or things that we didn't have in our homes. So it was just like, we grew up wanting to be so much a part of that culture. Now, looking back, I mean, and that's a major shift for you. And I'm like, on my way, but I haven't got all the knowledge to understand why, like, why. My spirit's there, but the knowledge isn't there for me.
Yeah, that was huge for me, because I think even the difference between us was we grew up around more white people than he did. He was on the east side, so he, you know, he was kind of from them. But, you know, us, like, even before I even got to, you know, McKeeshern, like, I was at Woodward Academy. I was in, like, private all white schools. I was like the only Black girl there. So I grew up not just wanting to be around them, but wanting to be them, because at a young age, like, they had everything. They you know, they had the money, they had everything, was just seemed perfect about them. And for me, they always looked at me like I was different, so I didn't like that. I wanted to be like them. So I think for me, the change has been just so deep, because it's like, dang, I was spending so much time trying to be people who aren't even people. Like, if you look at it historically. So I think for me, it's been a lot, and I've changed so much, and I have really understood who I've been dealing with. Because I think one thing that we do a lot is we study white people. And I think most people don't do that. Like, they might just be like, you know, like, I don't care for them. They're this, you know, like, you know, they can kind of do with or without. But we made it a point when we started seeing how the society was shaped. We started to make it a point to study them. We wanted to be like, wait a minute, how did you guys get like this? Because the traits and the attributes and everything that we have about Africans and them are so different. It was almost fascinating to be like, how did y'all get like this? Like what happened? Like, kind of like investigation discovery type thing.
Or basically, like, it was like an anthropological thing.
Yeah.
Like, because you know how, like, in the typical anthropology text, they study so-called third world cultures. So they'll go to some remote, you know, civilization in Papua New Guinea, and they'll be like, okay, this is how they do X, Y, Z. And we're saying, we looking at America in the same way. We're anthropologists. We're saying, what is the origin of this? Why? What's behind sexism? What's behind this kind of inability to share, you know, this lack of communalism? You know, what is this thing about this? What is the scarcity mindset come from?
What is this hoarding mindset?
This hoarding mindset
come from? So, like, all of these things, and they all of those traits come back, revert you back to the ice, to the hills, you know, in Europe. So it was just, when you see where they came from, it only makes sense that they are the way they are today. It wouldn't be, it's kind of crazy for us to ask them to be anything other than what they're being. So yeah, I think for me, once I started really understanding who I was dealing with and who I was surrounded by on all ends, it became kind of like, I know I needed to be on the continent.
And I can definitely relate to y'all, excuse me, in a lot of different ways when it comes to the research piece. And it started with me some years back, just trying to figure out my own health and asking the questions of, what would my ancestors do? What were my ancestors eating? And so with that came, all right, where am I from? Like, literally in Florida, where am I from? And as crazy as this is and coming full circle with me telling y'all this story, but I literally just found out where my mom's family's tribe is from here in the States, and how they were pretty much, it was just like a paper genocide in a sense. And you can literally see it all the way back to like the 1700s with each census and how the race or ethnicity changed. And even with like the native language, like what you said, the particular tribe I'm from, which is the Maharan tribe, which are a sub-tribe of Iroquois, they had their own dialect. So in this massacre and in this genocide, we lost the whole language. So I know that there's different pieces of the tribe scattered throughout the country, but even trying to recoup that language is super hard.
Yes. And they, one thing that we found out, that's very interesting that you say that. And it's so sad to hear these stories of, you know, knowing, because we all know that our ancestors, you know, were murdered and genocided. We know these things, but to know that you actually researched that information and able to say this happened to me, it makes it a lot more personal. Because I think you can kind of easily be like, yeah, all of our ancestors, you know, we went through that, but it's different when, you know, they're related to you and their blood is running through your veins, and it takes it to a different level.
It actually reminds me, because as my wife says, like, we all are aware that a genocide happened, and they call it the Ma'afa. But I think until people start to do what you did, which is basically research it in detail, it's just an abstraction. You know, and I remember earlier today, one of our friends, his name's Life Tribe, he said that Black people are an abstract people. He said, and they spend their whole lives trying to accommodate the needs of their conquerors.
Black people in America.
Black people in America specifically. And I thought, we was really meditating on it. We was like, wow, what do you mean, an abstract people? And I think he means when you're an abstract people, you don't even have any real shape. And when you don't have any shape, anybody can manipulate your identity. So they can tell you who you are, and you can just conform to whatever they say. Whereas if you research and have a knowledge and insight about your origins, and you define yourself, and you become concrete, then the same people can come and try to tell you who you are, and you'll be able to resist it. You know, so there's power in that self-knowledge. But I feel because of the genocide, it's been so thorough. A lot of our brothers and sisters, you know, in America, they're still at this level of abstraction. Like, I just know bad things, and I don't, you know, what we gonna do? What we gonna do?
Let's not talk about it. And it's crazy you say that you can be molded, because America even refers to itself as a melting pot. And what is something that's melted, right? You melt down a candle so you can remold it and shape it. And that's really what they've created. They've created a people who are just waiting to be molded, waiting to be molded back into something else. They have no identity. They don't care about Africa. They don't care about their ancestors. They don't care about anything but what they're being given. What are you going to make me in today, sir? What are you going to make me in today, white woman, white man? Like that's really what all they're waiting for. So I think even in the language, and that's when we started seeing too, we're like, dang, this country has actual words to describe what they're doing. And it's very just out there. They're not even trying to hide it. So I think that's when we were like, all right, like this is on a different level, a spiritual war that's on a different level, when they're just openly just very okay with saying things that are just like, why? I don't want to be melted. I want to be solid. I don't want to be. I don't want to be in a pot.
Like why is the precondition for us to exist that we be melted and merge with other things? Like, why can't we be solid and intact and still at the same time have our humanity affirmed?
And that's what Africans are. They're very solid in who they are. You can't give them something new without them being like.
Even us, because we still aren't fluent in Kiswahili. So a lot of times they'll hear us talk, they'll be like, you have to learn Kiswahili, right? They'll be like, because that's their culture. It's not just a language, it's a culture.
It's a culture thing.
So they like, you got to learn Kiswahili, because they feel the gap because they said, when you come into our space, you have to comply with our ways of living and our ways of being. And it's the same thing in America. You live in that space, you have to comply with the people who run the territory.
Even if you
they
know.
stole it, but you have to still.
Yeah, even if you know they stole it, the part of living there is complying. And we just got so tired of complying.
And I can definitely feel that too. And I think that's one thing our people have to do a better job at doing is stop complying so much.
Yes.
And speaking from a historical perspective, just learning about this piece of Florida, it's very rich in this area in the Emerald Coast. Why it's named the Emerald Coast also has me questioning stuff, but there's this spot, Uchi Valley, which is a part of the tribal stuff with my family history. And finding out that they were the oldest tribe in the Southeast, period.
Wow.
This is where the first Presbyterian church was founded. So it's just like, you can tell by reading some of the text on how our people are so welcoming and so friendly deep down in our hearts, that when these settlers and these people were coming, we take them in with open arms, and then we're taking on the sicknesses, we're taking on their religion, we're taking on their language, and all of this other stuff that comes with it. And of course, the intercourse and stuff that happens between the tribes and the settlers and all this stuff too. Women being raped and horrific stories of God knows what. I don't even want to talk about it for real. It's almost infuriating even talking about it and thinking about it. But as a people across the country, across the world, we gotta start coming together and standing on our own ground for real.
Like that's the biggest use, I guess, of propaganda, is that the reason why we ended up in the situation that we ended up in America was because we're just this gracious, kind of loving people. We wanted to see the good in other people, and that was used against us. And then we are in our expression of anger and frustration with being oppressed and being mutilated and killed and raped. We come out, they're now painting us as these angry, hostile people. And it's just like, it's wild. It's wild.
And that's something that's very common. And I like to focus in on words, because like my wife said, whenever people have words for things, they're signaling that this is a thing that they notice, and they're kind of exploiting it in some way. So this phenomenon of African people welcoming conquerors in, they call it xenophilia, the love of the stranger. Whereas Yoruba are Europeans, they are xenophobic. They fear the stranger. So you have a xenophilic people meeting a xenophobic people, and it's always going to work out in the favor of the xenophobic people, because the xenophobic people have the weapons, the guns,
the military,
the kind of psychological imbalance that's needed to carry out enormous amounts of violence against those
that
people.
We've never seen. I remember we were reading something, and they were like, they had never seen that type of violence when the white man, when they came into contact with him, the level of violence that he had was just something that they couldn't even fathom. And even today, like when we read the type of things that they did and that they ritualized, it's just like, who can conceive of that? You have to be from a completely different space than us, and that's why the phrase "we are all the same" is just one of the most disrespectful things I feel like people can say, is because how?
It denies that history.
How?
Yeah, it flies in the face of that history.
Yeah.
And the thing that you mentioned about it's now the narrative has been flipped.
Yeah,
so in the sense that the African is seen as angry, they call that victim derogation. And they do this in wars. So America, as an imperialist country, it just bombs places willy-nilly just because they want the resources. We are familiar with this. And a lot of the times they're able to do this because they develop narratives that say, these people deserve to die. And once they kill them, then they say, we civilize them. And we're going to bring them back into civilization, not acknowledging the fact that you disturbed it in the first place. Like, they had civilization before you even arrived. So what's happening with Black people in America is they enforce the genocide and the captivity. The natural psychological consequence comes out, which is Black people They have suspicion of one another. They're hostile towards their native traditions. They're hostile towards any type of.
They have a lot of self-hate.
They have a lot of self-hate. And then the person who inflicted all of those ills onto those people blame them.
Yeah, they be like,
look at them. Look at them. They're killing each other.
Look at Chicago.
Look at Chicago. Look at.
They love saying that.
So there's always this kind of purposeful limiting of the narrative to the point that we only see one slice. And I feel that's why we feel it's so critical for Black people in America to have a world historical consciousness.
Yeah, not just Black history.
Don't just study Black history. You have to study what happened before you was in America.
Yeah.
Because once you study that, you'll start to see, wow, these things that are happening to us are inflicted on us. This is not how we've always been. We was different, you know, and it's so fascinating. It's so much information to learn, and that's why I say we have to make ourselves students of life. We have to make ourselves students of the truth. Yeah. You know, wherever it leads us. Yeah. You know, we have to just follow that. Yeah.
Hey, Parallel Podcast listeners. If you're looking to learn more about building a strong mindset and deepening your meditation practice, join Makita every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time live on Instagram for Makita's meditation and mindset tips. You can also schedule a free consult by visiting the link in her Instagram bio at Makita Smiles. And for all things health and wellness, check out Blair's site, 3layerswellness.com, for products, services, and resources. And if you're looking to establish or enhance your business online presence, don't forget to check out thebonafideagency.com for assistance with websites, logos, graphic designs, and more. You can find all of this information in the show notes as well.
Well, and I think even in modern times, with what's going on the global scale, we kind of categorize things from a history perspective of looking at a textbook and like, well, slavery happened back in 1800s or whatever. That's not that long ago. This is just an evolved. This is just an evolved time. So the types of attacks and the way we're being attacked is completely different from back then. But you're still in a matrix, like and it's hard to explain that to people and the hope that people have. And I'm not a person that's big on hope. Like I'm one, it's either gonna happen or it's not. I'm not gonna be hoping on somebody to come and save me.
Yeah. I think that goes back to that Christian background that most Black people in America come from, is that having faith, having hope, and just praying, even though you're seeing things fall apart, you just gonna keep looking at it and just hoping and praying. And I think that was one of the tools of them that they needed. They needed Christianity for us, so that, I mean, it was so many things that came out of it that warped how we thought, but they needed us to believe this religion that is completely outside of our spirituality.
A kind of a system of practice that doesn't incorporate the nature of the relation of the person to their environment. It's just about personal salvation.
You know, it's about meditating on death.
And meditating on death, but there's no kind of force behind it that makes you speak out against injustice. You know, there's no force behind it that says, because I'm a divine being, there's certain things I can't submit to. You know, like it's always this area where you have a compromise because the suffering has been turned into a kind of complex where you think because I suffered, I'm therefore, you know, divine. Or my suffering ennobles me. You know, like long suffering. And what we're saying is that to resist oppression, that's what ennobles us. To fight our condition, that's what ennobles us. You know, it's not the suffering, it's the fight. It's whatever caused the people to come against you. That's what makes you a noble person. You know,
I feel like that's an expression of self-love is when you don't allow it to happen.
Exactly. And that's really what we're dealing with, is just we don't love ourselves. And that was another reason why, you know, for us leaving America was so important, because it's so hard for us. Like, that's one of the biggest things. It's so hard for us to see our people hate themselves because, I mean, and I know for me, I was there, I clearly hated myself at a point. So even empathize even more when seeing our people hate themselves. And I feel like being in America, that's all you see is Black people who hate themselves and who love white people.
Right.
That's really all it is. And I feel like for us, it got to a point where it hurt physically. It literally hurts to see that, because when you do all this research and you do all this studying and you start understanding who you are and where you came from, you're like, we're the most divine beings on earth. How are we at this point now? So seeing it in real time, it was so painful. It was so painful. And I think that was another reason why we were like, we can't stay here, because just seeing it and
it's not just the self-hate. It's the fact that it's like self-hate is the precondition for survival, in the sense that, and we know this from personal experience, like America, it structures itself in a way that when people start to seriously love themselves and seriously love their children, they start to become alienated from everything. They become alienated from their family. They become alienated from their friends. They no longer.
Hi, guys.
They no longer. They feel out of place. They feel, because it's the self-hate, and it's constantly reinforced by a media culture that made an industry out of it. So now self-hate is like the most lucrative industry in America. It just doesn't have a label, so, you just turn on the TV and you look at advertising. It's all these kind of messages that are convincing you that you have a deficit, that you don't, whatever you need that you need to consume. Like whatever you're missing you can buy it at the store. And we wanted to, especially for our child, we didn't want him to grow up with this mentality that he felt some kind of void, that the way to resolve that was to buy things or to submit to people,
or eat certain things.
Or to eat certain things. So we wanted him to have an understanding that when you feel this void, it's a lack of understanding of yourself. And the deeper you reach into who you truly are, the more that void will be filled. And that's something that type of language, I feel so much noise in America. You can't really, that type of language is incomprehensible. It's like you're speaking Mandarin or something. Like, what are you talking about?
Honestly, I think for somebody to get to that level, they really have to go through something super traumatic that makes them question on a whole nother level. And until that happens, it's just gonna be, keep going with the dead fish.
I agree. You have to kind of reach this kind of breaking point, and then once when they say you hit rock bottom, you have nowhere to go but up. It's like that thing, like the culture kind of has completely exhausted your self-hate. And it's like
you have no more self-hate
you have no more self-hate to give yourself. And you just like, well, I guess I'm gonna start loving myself now. How to do this? And once you get that first taste of self-love, you can't go back to the self-hate. You can't. It's impossible. So, and that's all we're like with the work we do. It's like we're trying to plant that seed. We're trying to get people to just have just a first taste of self-love. And we say when you taste that first taste of self-love, then you'll start to act in ways that are consistent with that.
And then the things that we say won't sound as crazy,
far-fetched and stuff.
Like a lot of stuff we're saying really isn't radical. We just come from a society where you don't talk at all. You just go with the flow. So we come and say you shouldn't be friends with white people. Now it's like, why would you say that? Like, you're so radical. Like, that's not really radical. Like, based on their history, I don't think that it's a good idea for you to but like I said, we've just been so sheltered in hearing ideas because they inundate us with propaganda, advertisement, music, movies. It's always something to do there. And it's like that because they need you to never have that stillness. Once you get that stillness and that time to sit and say, wait a minute, what is this? Why am I like this? Why is my family like this? Why do I interact with men like this? Why do I interact with, like, when you start asking those questions, now you start to say, okay, you can hear ideas and it doesn't sound as radical.
What would you say got, I know each of you had your own spiritual journey before you all came together. What got you to that point to where you were able to allow that stillness to happen? Like, what was kind of that real kind of pivotal start of that spiritual journey?
So I'll go first. I think before we met, we had both, well, at least before we met, we were kind of on that journey in a way. We were just on different paths, and then when we met, it kind of made sense. But for me, what kind of made me get in that stillness place was I got fired from a job that I had. And that was the first time where I actually had time to sit, because I didn't have a job. I would take my son to school in the morning, and I would have the whole day to just sit there and just analyze what I lived in, versus before that I was on the go. I always had somewhere to go. I had always some event to go to. I had to be at work, pick him up, like school events. So when I had those few hours while he was at school to just sit, that's when I was actually able to start asking critical questions and being like, ooh, and I had time to invest, because that's another thing. It's a lot of time you have to invest in learning. And most people, and I think maybe that's why we're seeing with COVID, some people are coming into that because they've had that space, they've had that stillness, that time to really come into and ask questions. So for me, that was when I actually came into it. And then when I met him, he had a lot of historical knowledge, and I was kind of studying like vaccines, and I was studying like the Agenda 21 and all these things that America had planned for the future. That's kind of what I was looking into. And then when I met him, he had read countless books on America and the stuff they do in wars and all those things. And when we came together, we were like, oh, you got this knowledge, I got this knowledge, like let's yeah.
So I'll just describe my journey. I grew up in a way where I'm very reserved, I'm very quiet, I'm very introspective. Those types of characteristics, at least in the environment I grew up in, it doesn't play well in peer groups. I just feel like that. So you're gonna be like, people are gonna ascribe things to you, and it can develop a type of depression. So I think in my teenage years and even my early adult years, I had a deep depression over myself, my ability to attract people, my ability to make friends. And it was like really suffocating. But at the same time I was depressed, I also invested a lot in my mind. So while I wasn't out all the time, I was often just by myself reading stuff, anything I could get my hands on, because I'm just, a acquisitive person. And I think when I met my wife, I had reached that point where I had already seen psychologists, I seen therapists, relationships that I tried to have, they would never unfold, because I feel a lot of times I would try to be the type of person who I felt the world wanted me to be, as opposed to being who I actually was. Right. So, but I got tired of that. So I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna be myself. I remember when I met her, for some reason I wasn't nervous. That was just a normal, I would always be nervous around people. When I met her, I wasn't nervous. We went to the Human Rights Museum. I was like, this is a good spot for me because I can talk about stuff I'm interested in. Yeah. And when I met her, I like to say I had the knowledge before I met her, but when I met her, she kind of gave me the context to apply that knowledge to my life. And in that sense, I became wise. And also when I met Mikey, my son, I started to discover things about myself that I didn't know I had in me. So I found out I could be a father. I found out I'm good at relationships when I'm with somebody who actually values what I think, and I think over time I just started, it was like a complementarity, a balance, and I just eventually the depression kind of just flew away, kind of like a bird, or it kind of fell off me like snakeskin. And that was, I guess that would be my journey. It started off as a kind of just feeding of my mind, but eventually it spilled over and kind of possessed me in terms of my heart and how I live, Right. So it isn't really like a switch went off. It wasn't a dramatic event, I think, like my wife when she lost her job, but it was a more slow process, and over time, the more I was affirmed and the more I started to see that my ideas were valuable, I started to live in a different way. So I don't know, that's the best way I can describe it. Yeah. So I've always been a truth-seeking type person. Yeah. And I feel like the relentlessness of it just led me to where I am today. Right. Yeah,
that's true.
That's awesome. I commend you both for being able to see through the veil and find each other throughout all of this chaos over here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I definitely I ask myself sometimes, like, how did I survive America? Because it's one thing to have, you know, psychological imbalance and depression in any society is bad.
Yeah.
But if you have it in America, where there's so many things in the society to accommodate, not to accommodate it, but to reinforce it.
Yeah.
You know, like they give you all types of stuff, from porn to food to dysfunctional relationships to drugs. Like it's so many things that the society kind of puts in front of you just to keep you in that position. So, I mean, a lot of times I just feel it was like divine intervention. Like, how did I not, you know, basically disappear?
Yeah.
You know, how did I not get consumed? You know, but I'm glad I made it.
Yeah.
One more question I had for Tanzania specifically. We talk about the food a lot between here and other countries, and how stuff is so non-organic here, and you know, full of pesticides and all this other stuff. But what's the food been like over there, especially compared to like fruits and vegetables here?
We talk about this all the time. It's so funny you ask that.
How much time you got?
Right. Okay.
All right, so the thing about Tanzania is we constantly use the word abundance.
Yes.
Abundance.
Yes.
So just riding down the street, you look out and you see stand after fruit stand after fruit stand.
Food
You see like pineapples, like piles of pineapples, piles of bananas, and they're so cheap too. And we notice here that the fruit here, it tastes different.
Yeah.
And we feel it tastes different because it's not modified at all. And one way you can tell, one kind of easy way you can verify whether the fruit is real, cut it open and put it on the table. If a fly doesn't land on it, it's not real. You know, because like in Tanzania, if you leave a food outside, flies are going to immediately start swarming because they can smell the fruit. But I feel like in America, they put the wax on it and it's shiny. They make it a
They dye it. They do all type of stuff to it.
Yes. And even the presentation of the food is very perfect.
Yes.
It's like, let me just put this orange perfectly here. Like over here, they might be dirty. They might have dirt on it because it literally just came from the ground. And they not trying to clean it up for you because they're expecting you to know, like, food grows, so it may have dirt on it. Versus in America, you see dirt and you're like, ew.
Yeah, and I would just say, living in Tanzania, fruit becomes just, it's almost like a snack. I feel like people eat fruit here like they eat potato chips in America.
Yeah.
So, like every day we eat mango, like every day. Mangoes, bananas. Today we bought this fruit called Juna fruit. It's like a grape.
It's like a grape, and it has a seed. Never seen it in my life.
Never seen it.
Still discovering new fruits.
Yeah, we still discover. So it's. I would just say, if you're a fruitarian or you somebody who like loves fruit, this is the place. You know, I even saw a stat. They said half of the bananas on the continent come from Tanzania and Uganda. The whole continent.
Everywhere, and they're so cheap. We bought 2 bundles of bananas today, baby bananas. They're super good and they're sweet. We bought them for $1,000 per bundle, which is like how much?
Like less than about $1.50 or something. It's 1,000.
1,000 T shillings.
T shillings, yeah.
So that's like
less than $1.
That's like some change.
Some change, yeah. Like less than $1.
Yeah.
Then in around our house, we got like an avocado tree outside.
We got lemongrass
and papayas growing all over the place.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna have to talk to y'all offline. Might have to make a trip over there. I'm gonna need some ambassadors.
You would love it, and it tastes real. I can't explain it, but it tastes authentic.
It's not too sweet. You know, it's perfect. But yeah. And the vegetables as well. Vegetables are good, you know.
So fresh.
So they have like pumpkin leaf, a lot of tomatoes. Like you can find that anywhere. Well, tomato is a fruit actually, but yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of abundance of natural food.
And it's so cheap.
Yeah.
Are y'all plant-based or y'all eat meat?
No. We still eat meat. We did have a time where we didn't eat meat, but we started back eating meat. But even the meat here is different, and they sell it. They tell us that all the time. The people here, it's lean. Like it's not.
No fat. It's no extra fat.
That and it's the meat in America is just like
they put the steroids in the chickens.
Yeah. So even even people that eat meat here, because that's another thing. When you go out, you don't even see people who are obese. So, and they eat a lot of meat, because the only meat we eat is fish and chicken. We don't eat like the other stuff. They eat pork, they eat all of that, and they lean. And I'm like, how are y'all eating like this? And y'all ain't got no fat on you at all. But it's because
it's a lot of physical work.
It's a lot of physical work.
Like you'll go outside and you'll see somebody building a house with flip flops on. Like they're just, you know, like just doing cement, like just
like it's
like
nothing.
casually.
Casually. Like, how is he doing this? Yeah. But yeah, so I think in America, if you do eat a lot of meat, you will literally be sick. But here, these people eat a lot of meat, they eat a lot of vegetables and a lot of fruit, and they are some of the healthiest. Yeah, the old people here, they don't bend over when they walk. They stand up straight. Like they don't have those back problems. Like
they can balance things.
They can balance. Like, it's like this person looks 80 and they walk in like they 22. So I think it's not really just the meat. Here is the type of meat in America that's really was what's hurting us. Like it's literally poison. It's not just that it's meat that's bad. It's that it's poison, and it's created for to have those problems. The medical industry can't afford to have healthy people. Let's just be honest. Like if everybody in America was healthy, it would be bankrupt. They need people to be sick. So it's in their best interest to fabricate and have these animals and give them all these pesticides and all this stuff to harm us. So here you just don't see it. And I remember thinking like, dang, they eat all this meat. How are they this fit? But it's not really just the meat. It's where's the meat coming from?
It's the source.
The source,
It's the source.
And that's what's scary too, even about Bill Gates now becoming the world's or the U.S.'s largest farm owner. He who controls the food controls the population. Yes. So what y'all just said is speaking facts. And then even with the healthcare industry, a patient cured is a customer lost. So of course it's in conjunction with one another.
Yep. They need each other. They like, you do this for you, I'm gonna do this for you, you do this for me.
Right. Did you see the 60 Minutes interview where Bill Gates was talking about they was making meat and it was made from microbes and fungi? It's a 60. Look. Yeah.
Exactly. That's the perfect. He's tripping.
Look it up on YouTube. I think it was Anderson Cooper was interviewing him, and he was like, they have a new meat, and he was like, yeah, it's made out of fungi and microbes. And then we was like, what? And then we looked up the word microbe, and there was like a disease causing microorganism. And he was like, why would you make meat out of a microbe? Like, so it's very wild, like the type of stuff that's happening right now.
Yeah,
like, people have to.
The funny part about that part is fungi are highly intelligent. So I would not be surprised if they found ways to program, like there's programming in this because, you know, So there's just the deception is real.
Wow.
On so many levels. Yeah, man. But yeah, there's so many other things I want to ask. I feel like we're going to have to do a part 2 of this. Yeah. I want to ask y'all about y'all's relationship because I absolutely adore the dynamic, the way I see you all interact. It's like this flow between a masculine and feminine that I've never really witnessed before. I definitely want to ask you about educating Mikey. I know y'all do that at home. There's so much more. So hopefully we can do a part 2 of this.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Yeah. And that's such a compliment. Yeah. I've never heard anybody say it that way. That is such a compliment.
Right, especially, because I agree. That's like one of the best things we've heard because I think the culture, at least in America, masculinity is kind of, it's becoming more suspect in the sense that the ways in which it's expressed is very aggressive, is very like demeaning, is very dodging in terms of accountability. And I feel like it's our responsibility as men to reclaim what it means from an African center to be a man. And that's and at the core of that, I feel is familyhood. Yeah. Like, what am I doing for my family? Period. Like, and if as long as my family cool with me, I don't really care about this other stuff. Yeah. So I definitely think that's an important thing that we have to start pushing, this kind of unity between the masculine and feminine energies.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I will definitely say you both personify the Ma'at for sure. So hats off to you today.
Man, thank y'all so much. lot to us. That means so much.
Yes,
so much.
We strive every day, and it's that. And the thing is, you never quite get it perfectly, but it's the attempt that counts. You know, you want to aspire towards that. Yeah.
And that learning part, being willing to learn and to make mistakes rather than living in the same mold when you know it's not working for you, but it's what you know. So I'm gonna keep doing it this way. You know.
That comfortability.
Okay, so before we wrap up this part of it, because I definitely would love us to do a part 2. Is there any books that you would have our listeners listen to? Or
this can't read so much. So
so I would say read. I always recommend this book, Yorugu by Marimba Ani.
Do we have it?
Yes, we have it. My wife will get it. So I would say read. I'll just recommend 3. So the first one I'll say Yorugu by Marimba Ani. I would say Prayers of Gratitude, because this is a short book and it encompasses a lot of what we've been talking about. That's by Mwalimu Baruti. He's actually an African Center educator. I think he's based in Washington, D.C. So his video is also available on YouTube. And then the third I would recommend is the ISIS Papers by Dr. Francis. So those 3 I feel could be good foundational texts for people just looking to find a way. This is the ISIS Papers. Looking to find a way out of the matrix, so to speak. That's Dr. This is Yorugu by Dr. Marimba Ani. It's very academic, but if you patient with it, it'll change your life, I feel.
And this is basically about the origins of cultural or spiritual origins of Europeans.
Right, and because the subtitle is An African-Centered Critique of European Cultural Thought and Behavior. So that's a good one. And then lastly, this one, Prayers of Gratitude by Mwalimu Baruti. And he has plenty of books.
He has a lot. We have 10 of his books.
Yeah, and this book actually, I think you can find it on sale at Medu Bookstore. Because I remember I saw it in the window before we left America. And that's at Greenbrier Mall, I think. So, but if you can't, I wanted to plug I had to plug the Black Bookstore.
Hey.
But at the bookstore, get it however else you can. You know? So that's 3. But usually if your consciousness is at a certain level, you'll find the books yourself.
Yeah, they find you.
They find They find you. They find you.
And we have a video too about some of our top books. And I think 2 of these are in there.
Right.
On our YouTube channel.
Yep.
Okay. Well, again, we are so appreciative.
Yeah, for real. Thank you all.
Thank you guys. We really appreciate what you guys are doing. We love the idea of coming together and getting different people to talk, because we have to dialogue about things that aren't being dialogued about. Because I think a lot of podcasts, they just kind of get on here and they talk about stuff that the other podcast is talking about.
Pop culture stuff that don't matter.
But it's like so many other things, and we're at war right now. So we commend you guys, and we're so honored to be here on a podcast where there's people talking about things that other people just refuse to just want to ignore. So thank y'all for doing this. We really appreciate it, and we need more of it.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yes.
All right.
Can you tell our followers how they can find you, learn more about what you all are doing?
Sure. So we have a YouTube channel called Witness Our Divine. It's just Witness Our Divine on YouTube and Instagram. This really only places we really are. We don't have Twitter or anything anymore. So my Instagram name is Naheelah Best.
And my Instagram name is Bami Kuti.
Yep.
And the Kuti just is a tribute to Fela Kuti.
Yeah, because we love Fela.
Bamikuti. So Bami Kuti. Bamikuti.
Yeah.
Or you can just go to my wife's page and she tagged me and stuff.
I'm gonna find you both. And I would definitely be subscribing to YouTube, because to our listeners out there, they definitely have some dope videos, excellent videography skills and all that stuff. I mean, it's A1 for sure. So check them out on YouTube.
All right.
Yes. Well, sending peace and love and light to you all and to Mikey. And we definitely look forward to reconnecting with y'all at another point as well. Is that him in the background?
Yeah, Mikey, come here. Hey.
Hi.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, how you doing?
You eating?
Yeah.
I think he was writing a book or something.
Yeah.
He's a writer now.
Right
Yeah.
now. So.
I heard he's trying to start a business. He's going to start a business too. I heard some talk about starting a business.
Yeah, we're trying to get him in contact with a local farmer. In fact, one of our friends, a local Tanzanian friends, her brother is a farmer. So I told him he was going to take him to the farm so he can learn how to grow some stuff and maybe sell it on the street somewhere.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah. He said he ain't going to college. He an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
He told his friends that. They be like, you're not going to college?
I like him. Hey, if he need help with any branding or anything, let me know. I got him.
All right.
Yes,
Thank you, brother.
Definitely be hitting
No
you
problem.
up for that.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, Parallel Podcast listeners, definitely let us know your opinions on the things that we shared today. If you have any questions, if anything that you want us to ask our king and queen here for our next round 2 of this, definitely let us know. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, peace and love.
Peace, peace.
Bibi for Hodie.